Swamp Thing, Green Hell, Issue 1, Jeff Lemire and Doug Mankey. I haven't said Doug Mankey's name in a while, I feel like, on the show. So this is a new Black Label Swamp Thing book, and I'm sure I read the solicit when they first put it out, but I'd kind of forgotten that and just sort of went into this blind.
Me too.
largely.
I was like, it's a Lemire horror Swamp Thing book.
Yeah, I just knew Swamp Thing equals monster based off of the cover. I was not ready for what the story actually was.
Yeah, because it's it's almost like a Waterworld-esque future where most of the land is gone. There's there's a few little islands here or there still surviving, which is where our main characters are. So it's this dad and his little, well, not that little, but his daughter, and they start out, they're fishing, they don't catch anything, but it sets up the world that they're in, which is they don't have a lot of supplies. The world is mostly gone. There's a lighthouse with a mysterious old guy on it that they don't go near. So that's set up early on. But you get this kind of community vibe when they come back home, and there's the old guy who's friendly with them, who's been telling her all these crazy stories. And they sort of use this because they find like a golf club in the trash that they pick up when they're fishing. And it sets up the idea that only the adults know what this is because, the idea of the game of golf, it just doesn't exist anymore.
It reminded me of the Dragon movie Reign of Fire when Christian Bale's telling the story of Empire Strikes Back to the kids.
I've not seen that movie, but I get the context.
It is a whole lot of fun trash.
So yeah, it's worth mentioning because before we even get to the Swamp Thing and the more supernatural stuff that gets introduced later, is that the art here is wonderful. That's just Doug Mankey with all this sunset stuff and them out in the water and the docks and the island. It all looks gorgeous. It's detailed. It's expressive. It sets up this villainous character who is actually the brother-in-law of the main character, because the wife had committed suicide some time ago because the world has just gotten so bad. And this brother-in-law, he's this asshole he's basically a pirate who comes around and shakes them down for supplies and food.
Also reminded me of Seven Samurai. The roving gangs that show up and demand tribute.
Yeah, and they're like
definitely my first thought as well.
Yeah, they're this Waterworld gang. We see later on their base is on like an old oil rig that they've sort of retrofitted or whatever.
Which shows my thing that oil rigs are on a fixed point, right? So if everything started
rising,
water level started to rise, they wouldn't be. It's not like an oil rig floats.
No,
right.
I agree. That's why I'm. I'll give it a pass though.
Yeah, me too. But it made me think about I don't quite understand oil rigs.
I'm sure there is not oil rigs, but I'm sure there is sort of floating structures that would rise, but I don't know what they are.
Right.
But hey, so water levels are rising every year, and so our main character here tries to stick up for himself, but he gets this shit beat out of him. The daughter sees a little bit of it. It's all very dour. It's all very sad, and then we transition to the Red, the Green, and the Rot, and the Parliament's debating about Earth, and basically saying these human beings have effed up the planet, and they are ruining it for all of us. The Rot is there's almost nothing left to feast on decay-wise. The Red's pissed because so much life is gone, and the Green, there's not a lot of places for Green to thrive if there's all water. So they come to this conclusion, this really dark conclusion, where they're like, you know what, we have to the Earth will reset over time, things will get better again, but the humans have to go. So that's what they decide. So later that night, when the other humans that are on this island decide to go and try and strike back at the gang, the main character wants nothing to do with it, but they're like, no, we're going in with some knives and guns, we're going to basically give them payback. When they go and do this, and the brother-in-law character in the green vest gets killed and knocked off the platform, when he falls into the water, which looks gorgeous, by the way, with the red and the dark water, colouring is beautiful.
So we just need to show you're talking about these colours and the sunsets. David Barron did the colours, not Mankey. So it definitely deserves shouting out for
that. But this is where the Parliament says, yes, this is the one. And I'm like, wait, this villain asshole is going to be the Swamp Thing in this book? And I'm like, what is this doing?
I'm like, what is this book?
That was my thought here. I was like, when we got to this point, I'm like, oh wait, we're turning a villain into their evil Swamp Thing to murder humans. That's a pretty and sure enough, I love that they didn't do a 2-page spread until the reveal of this thing. See when he comes out of the water, and it's this almost the mouth is very Nemesis from Resident Evil. Obviously, I thought of that, but it's also a Venom version of Swamp Thing with all the tendrils. It's proper
a bit
evil.
More man thingy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So which makes me question this is not just a Swamp Thing, right? I know the Green said let me take
I think
take
it
it
is
here?
just a Swamp Thing because
Okay.
in the sense that the Red are like, no, we can't intervene because we can't, turn on ourselves with
Okay.
they can't attack animal life basically.
Yeah,
Okay.
humans are still part of the Red technically. So
And Rock
Okay.
can't do anything until they're basically already dead. They
Okay.
can't,
Because
I think the idea here is this is the Green, but it's without the humanity brought to it. Yes, it's using the human form, but it hasn't got the
Right.
humanity brought to it by the person.
No, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I just because I read this part so late, like right before bed, I took it as the three. This was a creature of all three, right? And that's why it's so monstrous.
I don't
right?
think
It's
so.
just-
And
No.
But
I would say it
what
does,
you guys are saying makes much
Yeah.
more sense.
I do think it does take something from the because I think that's why they pick him. They pick this asshole because
Right.
like of who he is. So I think like there is a bit of an importance as to who they've picked, but
Maybe, but it's not. When I say it's not taking the humanity, I mean it's not taking the things we traditionally
yeah,
associate with Swamp Thing being benevolent.
With,
Yeah,
with
like-
Alec, with Levi, with the different
It's
ones
not
that we've seen
taking
over
these
Yeah.
good qualities from these people.
at this point I'm thinking, wait, is this going to be like a survival book where Swamp Thing is evil? Like that's a really interesting vibe that we're going with here.
Yeah.
And at this point, the dad with his little girl is like, "Hey, you have to like go. You have to run."
Yeah.
And at this point, the Swamp Thing is like, he's on the island. Another great 2-page spread. He's ripping bodies apart because he's got all these like his tentacles. Yeah. And like he's got like a part of a torso in the end of one. He's got like a leg at the end of another. Like it's proper brutal. And it's all great.
This is why this is the Black Label book.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
this dad character's helping the old man, and the old man goes to help the little girl, and like they're trying to fight back, but just and this was the part that made me think of it's because it's the mouth that makes me think of Nemesis from Resident Evil. You can see like the flesh mouth underneath the green sort of face, right? You can see kind of
Still got the teeth and the gums.
yeah. But yeah, he basically pokes this. Well, it isn't. He just poke her eye out. He's almost T-1000-esque with the green goes right through her eye, through the back of her head. That's when he tries to
she
shoot him.
shoots his eye. So instead of just regrowing an eye straight away, he regrows it through her face.
Yes.
Yep.
So super gnarly. All this stuff looks wonderful. And the
I
dad
love how
almost dies.
well,
Yeah.
I was gonna say they think they have him on the ropes, right? Is that this part? And then he just does the fun Swamp Thing bait and switch where he just grows another body far away.
Yeah, that's just coming up because they basically the dad almost dies and a couple of them come up and help him. But yeah, it just goes on a complete turmoil. He's killing people left and right.
Yeah.
So the little girl runs to the boat with the old man, and the old man, even though the dad was dead set against like ever getting involved with the lighthouse, the old man's like, no, the only chance we have is to go to that lighthouse. And so the old man and the little girl go to the lighthouse. And who is it? The man in the lighthouse, but old man John Constantine, who's been waiting. I mean, he didn't know it was going to be like the red and the green and all that. He thought, maybe it'll be Apocalypse that comes eventually to take Earth. But he's like, okay, but it's the Parliament, so there it goes, right? Go fetch me some of those weeds that are growing out of the rock. And he does a quick spell, and he awakens and brings back to life Alec Holland's Swamp Thing. And Alec is pissed because he was like, he was in like,
He was like, I was out, I was free.
I was in heaven or whatever the equivalent is. He was he was at rest, and the final page is just like, hey, you've got to fight the green for us. So the premise of this book, which it takes the whole issue setting up, which I like because it makes it all feel really big. But the premise of this book is that the Parliament, with the other parliaments, have elected a new Swamp Thing who is there to kill what's left of the human race. And Alec Holland's Swamp Thing has been resurrected by Constantine to defend the humans. This is amazing.
And he's the reluctant hero.
Yeah.
He's like, why are you bothering me? I'm done.
I appreciate the very biblical ideas of let's have a resurrection to save us from the plague.
Yeah.
Like this is just like one of those things where I'm glad I didn't know much about the premise because you go like half the book before it even like cuts to the Parliament's debating what, because up until that point there's nothing hinting at Swamp Thing or anything. It's just the characters.
No, but it
the
does
world.
feel like a environmental fable, which
Sure,
it's
yeah,
definitely
fits very much in with Swamp Thing.
Post climate change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that would fit in. You could almost see like, well, how is the Swamp Thing? He has to, weaponize, to take out bad actors. I had no idea it was going to be, like Pete said, a survival horror.
Same, I had no idea. Even when it got to the end and like after the last couple of pages, there's the advert for book 2,
Yeah,
and it has the cover with Old Man Constantine there.
Yep.
And I was like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that at the time when it was solicited. but obviously I'd forgotten about it. So that wasn't I wasn't expecting Constantine at any point in the issue. So when it got there and that was the reveal of who was in the lighthouse, it was actually, oh, that's cool. There was no point of me, well, even though I know I'd seen that cover, there was no point of once they mentioned, oh, there's an old guy in a lighthouse or someone in the lighthouse. I never put the pieces together in advance, which I'm kind of glad I didn't.
Yeah, I think it's because one of the myths that the girl said is that like he gets food by shooting seagulls. And I'd never thought Constantine, because I was thinking, like, who is someone who would like shoot birds for food? Like, who does that fit? And maybe it's just because that story's complete bullshit and that's not what he does at all. But I was trying to think of like maybe like Green Arrow, someone who would have like a good aim or something like that. I was trying to
judging by the sheer amount of cigarettes that he has next to him.
Yeah,
I'm assuming he gets deliveries of something somehow.
Sure, well, magic probably.
Yeah,
possibly, or he trades with the the Sea Raiders.
Oh, maybe right. Yeah.
Of course, it's Constantine, right? It's Swamp Thing. They're so tied that, let's say this is the last Swamp Thing story. Of course, he's gonna have a part in it.
Yeah, and obviously it's fun. The Parliament's coming up with the red because obviously Lemire did Animal Man, and that was the whole the red and the green.
There was
that
a thing just before it came out where Lemire tweeted or something, going to say, "Hey, if you enjoyed my Animal Man run, you might want to check out something." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, it makes sense. Green and red."
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to be such a integral part in the way it is.
No, I dig it. I think I love, like, even before, because obviously it's really like you get this rush of excitement with Alec Hall and Swamp Thing coming back at the end. But like all that stuff in the middle with Evil Swamp, I mean, we probably have a different name for him, just a different, Swamp Monster instead of Swamp Thing or something. But like all that stuff with him killing everyone, I'm like, this is just a great horror book right now. This is just, I'm having so much fun reading this.
Which, right, because those are the two different aspects of Swamp Thing that you usually get, right? There's the horror side, and then the kind of mythic side, and this somehow did both equally well. It's
interesting because usually the monster that Swamp Thing has to fight is either created from a different, it's either Rot with Anton Arcane, or it'll be a monster that's been created in a lab or something. This is like no. This is his previous creators have made a new version that's intentionally evil.
It's so on brand for them, right? Because they are kind of neutral in that they're all about self-preservation. And this is how we've ended up in other stories with Floronic Man as the avatar of the green, because they're just looking out for themselves first. And so, and of course, when post-climate change, they're looking out for them. Of course, you're going to take out the humans. And everything tracks with the Parliament. So, and especially with Holland's, from what I've read from Swamp Thing, right? I've basically only started with New 52. He always seems to be at odds with them. So him popping up here to be at odds with them again is pretty on brand.
I think it's so great that like after feeling an absence of Swamp Thing for a few years, that we had a great book. I mean, not quite an ongoing, but still, it'll be 16 issues when it's all said and done. And then you've got this that I feel like will be a great hardcover to like hand to someone and say, "Hey, this is just a great Swamp Thing story."
It's 16 issues plus the 2 future stages as well, so it's like 3 full trades of that's a solid run.
Yeah, I mean, like it's just interesting. We're getting some really good Swamp Thing stuff, and
and
again, very different Swamp Thing takes. Even though neither of them betray the idea of the character. No. Obviously, both of them are using different Swamp Things, but they're both definitely Swamp Thing books.
But the art is gorgeous throughout. Like it's like absolutely, it's some of Mankey's best ever work. Like I think, especially in something like this, where Mankey, he's not like trying to make like an ongoing monthly schedule, and it's just like he's had time to really put work into this. You can feel that extra time versus, well, his art is always good, but I think when you compare it to like when he's doing a book that's hitting a monthly schedule, I think you can see the extra detail in this because it's had the focus.
Definitely, and I don't know how much lead time he had on this, if he's finished it all or not. If not, we know for a fact DC are very willing to delay Black Label books.
Yeah.
Because they know it's not like the monthly ones where the single issues are a good chunk of their actual audience, whereas this will, over its lifetime, sell infinitely better in the trades.
Yes.
Like guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like almost all of the Black Label books. And they know that, so they're like, this needs to be perfect for the book, as opposed to, and we'll take the loss of sales that we'll get in delays if people drop it because it takes too long to come out. Because it's only 3 issues. They're banking on people it's on the poll, they'll just get it anyway.
Yeah. And people will probably rebuy it in a nice format if they like it. Which,
I know. I'm already like, yeah, this is gonna be a nice hardcover
yeah,
that I'm gonna have on my shelf. I've already decided after one issue.
well, I mean, it's just a third of the story, I think. So I mean,
Is this a 3 or 4 issue?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
Yeah, either way, like I know already. Like I'm having a hardcover of this on the shelf.
what are you rating Swamp Thing Green Hell, Matt?
8.5.
Connor?
That's a 9 for me.
Yeah, 9. I'm almost tempted to go 9.5, but I'll reserve. I'll keep myself reserved and say the 9.